Hello, my name is Emma, and this is going to be a pretty serious video. I had oral surgery recently, so if I sound a little weird, it's because of that. I made a book haul right before this video where I talk about that, so look forward to seeing that. Anyway, this is going to be a video where I talk about my struggles with mental health, my struggles with anxiety, OCD, and depression. I have trigger warnings in the description if you want to give those a look-see. This video is going to be pretty long, but it's a video that I've wanted to make since I've started this channel. This channel was made to talk about who I am, to talk about the person that I am and the books that I read. Because for me, the person that I am and the books that I read correlate very strongly together, or intensely together. But also, this channel was started because I was in a serious bad patch of depression, and it gave me an outlet, something to do, something fun. It was the reason I started the Little Less Lonely tag, because at the time I was going through another bad patch of anxiety and depression, and I thought about how books make me feel a little less lonely when I'm in that. This channel is so connected to my mental health, it's crazy, and I've wanted to talk about it for a really long time, but I was really scared. I was scared that no one would care, and my problems weren't that important, and that no one would find me comfort, and I was just being selfish, or silly, or dumb, or any of the other words that society puts into our ears about mental health and talking about it or not talking about it. But I really want to talk about it, because I feel comfortable enough to, and because I find so much comfort in hearing other people share their stories. And I just got a text message. That's fun. But I find so much comfort in hearing other people talk, and hearing other people talk about what they've gone through, because it makes me feel a little less alone. It makes me feel like I have a partner and a buddy in this, and if one person can watch this and feel less lonely, then that would be such a great thing, I guess. Yeah, of course these are my problems, and I've had a very privileged life, but I happen to be born with some problems in my brain, or maybe some assets in some ways in my brain. If you read a book like Furiously Happy, a book that completely changed the way I thought about my mental disorders and my mental illnesses. But anyway, I'm going to start from the beginning, because for me that's really important, because everything that's happened in my life sort of goes together, and, you know, it is a life story, so this could be kind of long, but I really hope that maybe the point of this video isn't to say that everything is better and everything is sunshine and rainbows, but it's that, I don't know, I got through it. I was able to find a way to cope, find a way to get better, or not better really, because I'm never going to be better, but find a way to cope. And really, sharing my story isn't, and my story is also, it's, you know, never ending. It's going to change, and I'm going to have problems. Sharing my story so far, even though that sounds really pretentious, is really just to say, hey, I'm here too. I've dealt with this stuff too. We're in it together, and I guess that's the point of this, if there is a point. I think that's the point. Anyway, I'm just going to do this. Okay, so let's start from when I was a little girl. When I was a little girl, I had so much anxiety. I had so much anxiety. It was pent up. It filled me up. I couldn't keep it in, my anxiety. People called me a worrywart. People called me, you know, the girl with the old soul, because as a child with a lot of anxiety and so much fear, that it automatically makes you more adult and means that you're an old soul, even though it just means that you don't have really any coping skills at a very young age. And there's the text message again. I should probably silence it. But when I was very little, for example, I was really afraid of thunderstorms. A lot of kids are afraid of thunderstorms, especially living in the South, where thunderstorms happen every day in the summertime. But my fear was the kind of fear that made me decide not to go to school or pretend to be sick, because I would feel physically sick, because my brain would tell me that if I went outside that there would be a thunderstorm and I would get hit by lightning, or there would be a tornado and I would lose my house and I'd lose my family. It meant that I would watch the Weather Channel obsessively, that I would check the news obsessively, that I knew exactly where I needed to go if there was a tornado or thunderstorm in every place that I was in. It meant that I would have panic attacks, that I would cry and scream at the thought of a black cloud coming over my house, because I was so scared of thunderstorms I couldn't breathe. That's what thunderstorms were to me as a child. They were everything. They were death. They were the collapse of everything that I cared about and everything that I loved. And they were just thunderstorms. And it seemed a little bit odd, this really intense fear of thunderstorms I had that led to panic attacks and utter horror. But, you know, I was just a worrywart. I was just sort of an anxious kid. This moved on, and it led all the way into middle school. Eventually, it just sort of went away. I don't really remember how or when, but it did. But one that never went away, one that started in childhood, was cars. When I was 11, I got into a car accident with my brother and my sister and my brother's really good friend. This car accident wasn't bad. No one was hurt. It was an okay, pretty much normal car accident. But as a kid with so much anxiety, it led to a lifelong fear of cars. I guess so far lifelong fear of cars. When I was very young, if I got into a car, I would have these compulsions to grab the door a certain number of times, to feel my way around the car, to know exactly where I needed to be sitting if there was a car accident so I would have the least amount of trauma, to yell at my dad to put his seatbelt on, to the point where I was hysterical. My fear of cars was very intense. And it still is. I don't drive because of it. I still have panic attacks if I get in front of a driver's wheel. It was one that never has really gone away, one that I really want to deal with at some point and be able to cope better, because driving a car is kind of important when you live somewhere where you don't have good public transportation. And it's also just a fear I want to get past, because I feel like it's been haunting me my entire life. But I had these fears. I also had little ones, like I thought if my parents drank alcohol, it meant they were alcoholics. If there was a candle in the house, even if there was no flame, it meant the house was going to burn down. I mean, these were fears starting from the age of 5 and sort of endlessly being there quietly in the distance. I still don't really drink alcohol because of my childhood fear that alcoholism automatically meant death. Or alcohol automatically meant alcoholism, and alcoholism automatically meant death. At the time, though, I didn't really know anything was wrong. I thought I was just an anxious kid. I thought I was a worrywart. Moving on into middle school, it kind of subsided. I think the drama of middle school made it so, I'm sorry, my feet are hurting, made it so that those fears were kind of, I guess, I don't know, blinded by my fear of not being liked, my fear of other kids making fun of me. But it wasn't until in high school when my fear of failure really became a thing. I think everyone has a fear of failure. I think that's quite normal. I think that's why we live, because we don't want to fail, I guess. I don't know if any of that makes any sense. My fear of failure really started, though, when I was in 9th grade and I failed high school algebra. Now, I was a smart kid, and when I failed algebra with all of my smart kid friends in, I don't know, AP calculus in a couple years, I was really mortified. I went to summer school, I lied to everyone about it. But ever since that point, or at least throughout high school, I thought that because I had failed algebra, no college would accept me. It would mean that I was going to be homeless. It meant that I was going to live my life in destitution in a derelict old house. It meant that I'd have to live with my parents forever and be a burden, and my parents would always resent me, and that I would never be worth anything because I failed high school algebra. It gave me an intense drive to be better, to be smarter, to try harder, not to be smarter, but to try harder, to find every opportunity for myself to succeed, to be the president of every club, to be yearbook editor, and to be really good at junior ROTC, and to find every opportunity to shine, because I felt like there was no possible way for me to ever to shine because I had failed high school algebra. There was no possible way for me to ever be happy because I was never going to get into a good college, and the set way that I had to go, the set way that the American society had told me that I needed to go to succeed had been crushed because I had failed high school algebra. And it was devastating. I became sick and very depressed when I was 15. I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to leave my room. I just wanted to sit and cry and listen to Joni Mitchell records. And although that sounds dramatic in high school, it was very real, I guess, for me. At the time, it felt never ending. Around this time, I started having my first real adult panic attacks. The kind of panic attacks where I couldn't breathe, and I felt like I was going to faint, and I felt like I was going to throw up, and every other panic attack symptom. But I found a new thing to obsess about. For me, my obsession sort of goes into researching obsessively to the point where I'm in a cycle, and the researching makes me ill because I can't stop, and I have to look, I have to know more, and not in a good way. It's never for my benefit, almost ever. But I put all of that into college, and specifically into one school. a school that I knew I could get into. I'd gotten into the summer program in high school. I knew I could get into this college. I knew I needed to go to this college. I knew that this college meant that everything would be better, and it meant that I wasn't a failure and people would love me, and I could have a real house and a real job and a real family. So I went to this college, and I put every hope and dream and part of my self-esteem into this college, and of course it didn't work out. It didn't work out in a disastrous way. I was super in debt at the age of 18 in a competitive environment, really far away from home in a small city where I didn't feel comfortable or happy, but I needed to pull it together. So I put on a happy face until I couldn't put on a happy face anymore, until my body literally quit on me, until I became severely anemic, until I had a panic attack that lasted 48 hours and I felt like I was going to die, until I was clutching an inhaler because the urgent care people thought I had asthma, and I thought that if I kept using it, it would mean that I could feel better and feel more in control because I was so out of control. It meant that every fabric of my being and every thought that mattered to me was falling apart. And so I left in the middle of the semester. I took all those hopes and dreams and I threw them in the back of my mom's Volvo and I went home. And I didn't cope well, because everything that I put into it, every part of my self-esteem and self-worth disappeared. And I didn't have it anymore, and I didn't know what I wanted to do or what I was supposed to do. And I became really depressed. And I put on a happy face because that's what I do best. But I had really bad derealization and depersonalization from the medication I was taking. It felt like everything around me wasn't real. It felt like I couldn't trust myself. And it felt like these thoughts, these existential thoughts that are quite normal at any age, but very normal when you're in your 20s, these existential thoughts and this depression and this anxiety that would not end, was because, and this is the most triggering part of it, was because there was something fundamentally wrong with me, and it meant that I would never get better. And it meant that because I was having existential thoughts and because I was depressed, it meant that my somewhere in my brain, it meant that I wanted to kill myself. And I didn't want to kill myself. And that is a very real thing that happens. Of course, it happens. And I don't even want to talk about it. But I didn't want that. But when your entire mind and body and soul feels like you can't control it, it feels like it's going to happen, it's inevitable, it feels like there's nothing you can do to stop it, and you can't stop thinking about. You can't stop thinking about the fact that you're going to kill yourself, even though you don't ever want to do that in a million years, because that's the last thing that you want to do. For some people with OCD, you might have a fear that you're going to hurt somebody else. And I remember reading about this when I was obsessively reading about it, going, I'm selfish. I'm so selfish. I don't have that fear that I'm going to hurt the other people in my life. It's just about me. It's always about me. And why is it like that? Why don't I have this other obsession which seems I don't know, better or more altruistic? Of course it's not better. It's just as bad. But I felt like because I had this completely overwhelming desire, not even desire, but thought over and over replaying that I was going to kill myself, that I was even more selfish. I never wanted to do it. I never wanted to hurt myself in any way. And this mantra, I remember I used to say this mantra over and over again. I used to say, my hands are for helping and not for hurting. My hands are for healing and they're not for hurting. Because I felt like I couldn't trust my own body. I couldn't trust my own body to love myself. Even though it's all I wanted to do was just love myself. And this sounds really hard, and it's really difficult to explain to people because they just assume that you wanted to kill yourself. They say, you wanted to kill yourself, you were suicidal. I didn't. I really didn't want to do that. It was the last thing I wanted to do. And I felt so selfish about it because there were real people in the world who were very depressed. And it felt worse because of that. It felt like there was something, I can't really explain it, but it felt like I was just more and more selfish because I had this obsession. Eventually I had a breaking point, and I broke down to my mom. This girl always puts on a happy face, and she told me that I should go to therapy. And so I went to therapy, and it changed my life. I went to therapy, and I learned how to cope. And I learned how to be better. But before I did that, the worst moment was being in Baltimore with my mom, and she took me. Her and my dad went to a business conference, and they didn't want me to be alone, so they took me with them. And we had this really long night driving through Baltimore trying to find our hotel. And we got to the hotel, and I was sitting in the bed, and I started crying, and I said, I'm so scared. I'm so terrified. I can't stop thinking. I can't stop obsessing. I'm so scared. I don't know what's happening to me. I'm so terrified. And my mom started crying. My mom doesn't cry very often. And I started crying, and I couldn't stop crying. And it was so difficult to explain to people. It was so difficult to feel so alone in something that felt so selfish, a fear that felt so completely selfish. But the therapy started working. I started going to exposure therapy. I started to learn how to cope better. My panic attacks got better. Things became easier to deal with. My OCD has never gone away. It's never going to go away. It's how my brain operates, and it's, again, makes me feel very selfish, even though that particular obsession has gotten so much better, and I almost never think about it. But OCD is something, or anxiety or depression or any mental illness feels so selfish to the person that is dealing with it. It can feel so selfish. You try to explain to people why you need certain things, why you need certain support, why you need certain looking after occasionally, why you need sometimes for someone to say, it's okay, I still love you. I still think you're great. I still think you're wonderful. I think you're going to be okay. Why you need to hear that sometimes, and sometimes a lot, is difficult. I'm not better in any sense of the word. I don't like that word better, but I can cope. I guess I am better, but I can cope. More importantly, I'm a lot happier. I'm a lot more content. I can deal with things when they're difficult much easier. I don't put every bit of my fabric and soul into one thing. My camera died, and I didn't really want to wait until it charged to finish this video. But anyway, I was talking about my self-worth. I have self-worth again, and it's really great. At the beginning of this video, I said I don't really know what the point of this video is. It almost felt like just like something I need to do. And, you know, you could probably argue that I didn't need to make it so public, but again, I think that maybe I could help somebody or make someone feel less alone. That would be really great. I don't know. Yeah, I needed to make this video for myself, and hopefully other people find comfort in it or feel like I said, less alone. Anyway, I know this is ending kind of on a less intense note because I'm kind of tired. Expelling so much intensity, I guess, or emotional intensity can be kind of exhausting. Anyway, I'm gonna get back to my book videos soon, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you want to share your own stories, of course, only do so if you're comfortable. But anyway, I hope this video was useful in some way, or I guess a little helpful, or a little comforting, or any other adjective you want to use. Anyway, I hope you guys have a really great day. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for sitting through a long, personal, ranty, weird video. But, yeah, I really appreciate it.